Hello everyone and welcome to episode 116 of the iACast. My name is Michael Doise and this week I'm here with Aaliyah Dudley.
Hello.
And Jason Earls.
Hello everyone.
I know we skipped a week, so we're back to talk about everything tech.
Happy Easter.
Yeah, we have a bit of news today. And it appears that, Samsung kind of has some issues with those folding phones, and they canceled the release. So, Do any of you guys want to talk about that?
They didn't cancel it. They pushed
it back.
They pushed it back indefinitely.
Yeah.
But
more details to unfold soon.
Right. But they're folding this hand. Anyway. So, after hearing about some issues that were going on with the review units of the Galaxy Folds when they got actually into people's hands and they were having touchscreen problems, there was dust getting in the hinge and getting into the phone and causing massive issues. There were lots and lots of things going on with these devices. Samsung decided to push back the release of its Galaxy Fold and try to solve some of these problems. And I just find it interesting that these issues made it past manufacturing. It just feels kind of a rush job. Because if you'll remember, when this line of phones was released, you could see all of the S10 models. They were on demo. You could see them. But the Fold was not there as a demo. There were only pictures. So it's kind of interesting how this worked.
Yeah, that's true. I just think that, Samsung's rush to be first is kind of hurting them in this regard because, it's like you said, a lot of these issues passed testing, and I don't think that I would have been able to, in good conscience, release that phone, but obviously Samsung felt differently, and now they're having to push the release back, and we will see. I hope for their sake that these design changes are going, whatever design changes they implement, rather, are going to help a lot of these issues, because as it stands right now, I wouldn't be able to recommend the Galaxy Fold to anyone.
Well, and I feel like the Galaxy Fold is an early adopter phone anyway.
But even so.
Yeah. I just feel like, you take a risk when you get something that new and that conceptual and that pricey.
I think the risk is too great right now, personally. I mean, you've got display issues, you've got hinge issues, so...
Yeah, this is one of those cases where you do want to wait for the second, third, or fourth generation before you buy one.
If there's going to be a second, third, and fourth generation, I wonder what this is going to do to the whole folding phone idea in the minds of the public. I mean, I understand Huawei still has their Galaxy Mate, or the Huawei Mate Fold, or whatever they call it. But
well, the issue that I have is that it's just the latest fad is to go with folding phones, and I don't know that we need to go there. And I think it's one of these circumstances where it's, if it's possible, people are going to try to do it because, it's something new and they think it's going to innovate and revolutionize everything. But I don't know that this will. But my thing is that, there's a niche for everybody and everything out there. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Aaliyah, you found an article that you shared in our Slack channel talking about Apple and removing certain apps from the App Store. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so when Apple released Screen Time with iOS 12, it seems that, at least according to the opinion of this New York Times writer, Apple has also begun systematically knocking out the competition or severely limiting the power of the competition's apps. And this article talks about it and goes into some pretty deep details about what's going on and the steps that developers have tried to make to get their apps back in the store. But the author doesn't paint a very rosy picture of Apple in terms of taking apps out of the store and doing these things and just generally not communicating with developers.
No, they don't.
And I have a few mixed feelings on that. There's a lot of times where Apple has done this to other businesses. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of these screen time developers have used hacks and tricks to get around the Apple, using tools that are there for other reasons to make their app work. And Apple is everything has its place kind of a thing. So if your app does something in the iOS ecosystem that it was not designed to do, that iOS is not, supposed to do, then they do not want you there. So I feel like that kind of shunts creativity a bit. It kind of keeps people from being as creative as possible. I tried to make an app called Share Center that would do something similar to these launcher apps that put items in the Share Center. The Today screen and your widgets. And it was rejected because of supposed app review guidelines that were being violated when I saw several apps doing the same thing exactly how mine was supposed to do or supposed to work. So I understand what these companies are going through, but this is Apple. You build in their playground and you get what you get.
Yeah, as far as the developer side is concerned, it does sound like it's not a very fun situation, but at the same time, if you were violating Apple's rules to get your app to do what it's trying to do, then you're violating Apple's rules, and that's, Apple has every right to say something. But if it is true that they haven't been, very communicative to developers and giving them a lot of time, or any time in some cases, it sounds like, from what I remember reading, to fix these issues, then I feel like that's also a problem. I feel like, Apple should be better at responding to the developer questions, assuming these stories are, 100% accurate. They need to be better at responding to developer questions and giving them time to fix their apps before just yanking them from the App Store.
Now, in all fairness, Google is the same way. I was told that one of the apps I developed was against the YouTube viewing. In the background, it got around the YouTube Premium features, and so it was going to be pulled. And I asked, well, how does it do this? Can you give me some information? None. So I had to go figure it out for myself as a developer and fix it. So this is not just the same on Apple's side. This is on Google as well.
Yeah, but at least they told you why. Some developers claimed that Apple didn't even tell them what was going on in their app.
Well, they have to give some information. I've had a lot of app rejections, and they told me where in the guidelines I messed up. So I know for a pretty good fact that they were told at least that much. But another news item that we have, because we got to go ahead and move on, is the fact that Overcast has added a new feature that allows you to share different clips of different podcasts to Twitter or Facebook or other places. So you could have this part of the podcast shared to some other service so people could hear that part if it's, something interesting. What are y'all's thoughts on this?
I think that's really cool. I really do, because I feel like it gives us as users, as listeners of the show, to pick our favorite parts and share them with people, whether we're trying to promote the podcast or on a broad scale, or just to a friend, be like, hey, you should listen to this. Here's a part of it I think you'll like, to get you hooked. So I think it's a really cool feature.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that the developer of Overcast has not only done this, but made it completely accessible for voiceover users too. So it's very easy to do. It's really it's really cool.
Which brings us to our podcast topic today. and that is to talk about actual podcasts and how to learn from different podcasts.
A podcast about podcasts?
Yeah. So, there are so many ways to learn new things about technology these days. But I think one of the most underused resources is other podcasts. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that today and give some recommendations. So Jason, you had one, right, that you shared to the Slack.
Yes, I actually shared to our Slack community the main podcast page because they have several podcasts, not all of which are the criteria we're looking for, but CNET, they are owned by CBS Interactive. They do a lot of different podcasts, but the one I was specifically attempting to share before and was having some issues was their CNET How-To podcast. They give you, different technology tips and tricks, and they've got all kinds of good stuff. They have video versions of their podcast, audio versions of their podcast. You can subscribe and all kinds of different things. They have RSS links. So they are a very good resource to find out, not only how to accomplish a given task, but also reviews and what's latest in the world of tech.
There are some really cool other podcasts, and one of them that I want to talk about is actually co-hosted by one of the familiar faces here on the iACast network, Allison Mervis, and that is the Tech Doctor podcast. And that's a really cool show because they have different discussions on different devices, and sometimes they even do different demonstrations on how devices work. So that's with Allison and Dr. Carter.
For me, because you never asked, I have personally started listening to Programming by Stealth, which is one of the podcasts co-hosted by one of the folks we met at CSUN, Allison Sheridan, and the other gentleman's name is slipping my mind because he built it. He wrote the content, I believe. Michael, help?
I believe, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I know his name's Bart.
Yeah. And I'm not even going to take a stab at it because I know screenreaders butcher it, so yeah, okay.
But we'll have a link to it in our show notes.
We will. And the podcast essentially aims to try to teach you programming without making you believe you're being taught. So it takes it and teaches it in very small, little bite-sized portions. So it's very nice. Very, it's still going on, actually. It's not a completed series.
They have 76 episodes already?
Yeah. I'm going to be binge listening to that this summer and learning from it. But very, very neat podcast along with Taming the Terminal, which is another one that talks about terminal commands. So very, very educational and more on the geeky side.
And didn't you tell me, Aaliyah, that in the Programming by Stealth podcast they actually mention accessibility as well?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they actually do talk about it, even though both of them are cited. So, really cool.
Another podcast that's really interesting is a show called iC from David Woodbridge. And he kind of goes through all the different devices he gets and does demos and kind of does teachings of how these things work and different things. So it's a really neat show. I was looking through the episodes before we posted today, and it looks really cool. Another really good podcast for learning new things. They have a combination of discussions and demos, but the Apple Viz podcast also has a lot of good resources for learning new things about Apple and accessibility, of course. If you don't want to focus on the accessibility and you want some good training on using the Mac and iOS devices such as iPhone and iPad, there's one called Mac Most that's really cool, and they have some good resources. There is this one little podcast out there that has quite a few episodes now, believe it or not, and it's called the IA Democast. You could actually learn quite a bit from that one.
Who does that show?
I don't know. But basically, these are some good references and some good podcasts that you can use, and there's always more that you can utilize. Allison Sheridan has all kinds of different things. Another great one is on the Twit network, This Week in Tech. And they have a show called Know How where they actually give how-tos on how to do different things with technology. So I would give that a listen as well.
Also, one of the things I've done to find good podcasts is I'll just open up iTunes or I think I've done this on the Victor stream, but different podcatchers and stuff, and just look at their technology category just to see what shows they have, look at the descriptions, and if something sounds interesting, listen to an episode maybe, or just take the plunge and subscribe to it.
And it's interesting that the range of shows in technology are more about talking about tech instead of instructional. We could have a whole episode that's a lot longer on technology shows, like the talk shows. So to me, that's pretty interesting as well.
I think it's interesting too. I actually wish you could, I don't remember if you can in iTunes, but I wish you could sort podcasts by a general technology section, and then maybe go further and choose technical instruction or something, but
Jason, do you have any other podcasts that we may have overlooked that you want to mention?
I haven't listened to it for a while, but How Stuff Works, which is a really interesting website that explains, how stuff works, has a podcast that I remember liking back when I listened to it. As I said, I haven't listened to it in a long time, but it's still an interesting resource nonetheless.
Yep. And also, the Hadley School for the Blind does a podcast called Tech It Out. That's with Ricky Inger. So that is how you know it's going to be a great show to learn about different things.
Why does her name... Oh, yeah, because they did the... She was on one of the... wasn't she on Triple Click Home or something back when Serotech stuff was around?
I know she was on several of their podcasts back then. I think she was on the main Serotalk show.
I kind of miss those shows in some respects because they had good information.
They really did. But the same folks are at it again. Joe Steinkamp's at Blind Bargains, so he always has very good information there. And Ricky is now at Hadley doing that show. So there's some great things. And also, if you use JAWS or any of the Freedom Scientific products, FSCast might be a good education show to learn more about what's going on with JAWS and everything in their world. Do we have any other final thoughts or comments before we go ahead and wrap up today?
I just want to say that, one of the best things to do if you're looking for a podcast is to just, ask your favorite search engine of choice, too. I mean, you'll see, I'm sure, different podcasts and reviews and links to episodes, and just browse the search engines and see what they have to say as far as technology instructional podcasts as well, because I'm sure that's there are a lot more than we've mentioned here in this short amount of time.
If you guys are podcasters and you feel like we didn't touch on your shows, we will in a future episode. And a lot of technology shows weren't mentioned here because we wanted to focus primarily on instructional and not necessarily the discussion portion. So please keep that in mind when you say, why didn't you mention our show? So I think it's a good resource. It's a good starting point for you to begin your technology education. And I think it's been a great episode. With that being said, Aaliyah, what's your pick and where can people find you online?
hear that? That's the sound of my pick for this week. That's right. As I am walking outside here, I will discuss my wonderful pick. And in case you're not wearing headphones, I would encourage you to go back and listen to this part with them on. My pick for this week is the Sennheiser Ambio headset. Ah, yes. Made by a partnership between Sennheiser and Apogee. This is a lightning headset that connects to one's iOS devices and allows the user to record in binaural audio. Now, good girl. I have taken my dog outside, and you can hear the nighttime sounds around me. If you'd like to find it, you can find it for $250 on Amazon. At least that's what it was when I bought it. Normally $300. Come on. And it is a quite useful little tool. Anyway, you can find me producing content for iAccessibility. You can email me at Aleeha, that's ALEEHA, at iAccessibility.net. And you can follow me on Twitter at BlindCowgirl199.
Jason, what is your pick and where can people find you online?
So, funnily enough, my pick is a podcast. It is not a technology instruction podcast, but it is an awesome podcast nonetheless. It is called Lockdown, and you can find it at wearalive.com. I am really excited to start the episodes of Lockdown because it's a continuation of the storyline from the Wear Alive podcast that Jeff Bishop picked in a previous episode. Man, he has got me so hooked on that show. Like, I have, at night before I go to sleep, which is an interesting time to choose, but I am known to listen to several chapters of that thing, and then it's like, alright, I'm only going to listen to one. Nope, it's been 2. Alright, I'll stop here, and then it's like maybe 3 or 4 chapters later because they're split. Most of them are split into 3 episode parts. But Lockdown is going to be so fun to listen to. If great audio dramas and zombies and stuff like that is your thing, I highly encourage you to check it out. Again, wearalive.com. So good. Jeff was so right. Oh my gosh. Excellent stuff there. As far as where people can find me, you can find me producing content for iAccessibility. You can email me at jason@iAccessibility.net. You can search for me on Twitter at JDE91. That's Juliet Delta Echo 91. And you can also search for me on Facebook. Just search for Jason Earls. And if you decide to add me, please let me know that you found me from our podcasts.
My pick is something I picked up this weekend at the Microsoft Store, and that is an Xbox One X. I had the original Xbox One system. I did not go to the S. So I missed one in the lineup. Shame on me. I've been an Xbox user since the Xbox One. And I don't mean the ONE. I mean the number 1, the first. I think in 2001, or give or take, that's when that came out. I've loved that console.
I forgot it was that old, actually.
Yeah. Halo came out
Wow.
around that time. And I love that console. It is fantastic. And when the Xbox 360 came out, they introduced achievement points. And I have been addicted to getting achievement points in games ever since. And I'm now picking back up on that addiction full force. And it's just amazing. The graphics are amazing. The console is just great. And they also interestingly enough, made the console more accessible, which you'll hear about in our Unbox cast. The original Xbox One had touch-sensitive buttons. This one does not. All buttons are tactile buttons that you can press. Now, there's goods and bads with that, where the touch buttons will last longer. If these wear out, they wear out. But it's just a wonderful system, and I recommend it to any gamer. You know, some people like the PS4 more, but I really feel like Xbox is just the most accessible and the most inclusive game system that is on the market right now, you know, along with PC. So, as I have
Xbox controller, anyone?
Yeah. As I commonly say on this podcast, really good going Microsoft, because I several years ago was a huge opponent to Microsoft because I didn't like where they were going with a lot of other things, except for Xbox. And, you know, I feel like the Xbox has been the focus of a lot of their change recently. And that's how it's felt. And I feel like they've really just taken their business to a new level. And so they're amazing. They really are. People can find me producing content for iAccessibility and playing games on my big Xbox. You can email me at mikedoise@iaccessibility.net. That's MikeDoise at iaccessibility.net. I'm Mike Doise on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. Just search for Michael Doise. And you can, if you do add me, please let me know you found me from the iACast. And you can find me on my website at michaeldoise.com. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the iACast. This has been a good episode. We decided to do something different. This time, Aaliyah and Jason recorded in binaural just for fun, and I'm on my usual mic.
For people who listen to the stream, considering what my Mac just pulled, I'm kind of glad I decided to do it this way, because I lost speech and it restarted, and it finally came up, and I got mad at it and shut it down, so...
Yep, just like this podcast, we're about to shut it down.
Did not even actually see that coming. That's pretty funny. That's pretty good.
All right, guys, we will see you next week for another iACast episode. Thank you so much, and we'll see you then.
And don't forget to join our community if you want to be able to chat with us live on our episodes. Go ahead and download the Slack app and go to iaccessibility.net/Slack and sign up and chat with us. We love hearing from you guys. Yep. It's really fun to talk to you all during the show.
We actually share what we're going to be talking about on the show before the episode, so you get a sneak peek. All right, everybody, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
This show has been brought to you by the iACast Network. We love hearing from you. Email us at feedback@iaccessibility.net. Got Twitter? Follow us at iAccessibility1. Facebook? Search for iAccessibility. Download our free apps for iOS and Android and keep up with all of our content at iaccessibility.net. If you'd like to donate to our show, hit the PayPal button on our website and get early access to our outtakes with a donation at patreon.com/iACast. Thanks for listening.
Copyright 2019, iAccessibility LLC.